Hi, it's Ashleigh from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome to Fail Friday, the series in which I fix your baking fails, my baking fails, or I tell you how to avoid a fail. And today I'm going to be giving you a bunch of tips on how to avoid a fail with choux pastry. So right now what I am making is the craquelin portion. I've done this before on my channel, but I haven't done it in a while, so I'm really going to break it down in this video. Now, all of the recipes that I am using today for the choux pastry portion are not my own recipes, but I will link down in the description box below the recipe that I am using. It is fantastic, fabulous, very, very reliable. So for this craquelin portion, it's really simple. It's just brown sugar, flour, butter, and then you just roll it out. I will get into more detail about that later on, but let's get into the choux pastry right now. Now, all choux pastries are pretty much the same formula. It's butter and water, sometimes milk, and then flour. You'll notice there that I did sift my flour, and this is one of the few recipes that I will actually sift my flour for. I also have some sugar in there as well. That's just to sweeten it up a little bit, but you can totally omit that. Once the butter and water is completely melted, you want to go ahead and right away add in that flour. Now, I have turned off the heat, but notice that I'm leaving the pot on the element. Now, I've noticed for my own personal stovetop, this works really well, but you will have to play around with things because my gas stovetop does react a little bit differently where I have to take it off completely. All you want to do is you want to keep mixing until everything is grabbing away from the pot there. And you'll notice you'll end up with a pretty clean pan. Then you're going to place it into a stand mixer of some sort. You want to let it cool down just slightly. Some recipes will tell you to do it until it's completely cooled down. I like it until it's a little bit warm to the touch, and then I go ahead and add in one egg at a time and incorporate it. Now, this is the tricky part. You do not want to overmix it. You want it to ribbon down just a little bit, but not too much. You want a stiffness to it as well. Now, here comes the fun part. If you have struggled in past with getting a nice crisp choux pastry, I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, prior to doing this, you can mist the area with some water. This is going to help create that steam and crisp everything up. However, I find I don't need to do this. Now, you're probably wondering, what are you doing right now? I am creating a Paris breast. This is one of the things that you can do with choux pastry. And notice I didn't pipe this out or anything. All I did was I used my little ice cream scoop, and I did use my cake pan as a guide to get that nice and round. Now I'm just taking an egg yolk and I am brushing it on. Again, this step is not imperative, but if you want that nice shiny looking choux pastry at the end, you are going to want to do this. If you don't know what a Paris breast is, it's basically kind of like a giant eclair, but it's done in a round formation and generally does include almonds or some sort of nut. And then you slice it in half and you fill it with your whipped cream filling. It's one of my most favorite desserts. Whenever I have a birthday, I generally like to have some sort of cream puff element to my birthday cake. For the rest of the cream puffs, you'll notice again, I am not piping these. I am using my ice cream scoop. I just find if you want that nice rounded puff, this is the easiest way. And I do love piping, but I just find it's not super necessary for this. In order to avoid any peaking whatsoever and any burning, you are going to want to take your finger, dampen it just a little bit, and pat down any potential peaks. This craquelin that we created earlier in the video has been sitting in the freezer for approximately 20 minutes or so, and now I'm just creating little medallions and placing them on top. Now, why craquelin? Why do we put this on? Well, first of all, it's delicious, but second of all, it creates a really nice crisp texture, and I find I get a lot more no-fail cream puffs when I use this method because it really keeps everything nice and crisp. Those are going to bake at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for at least 30 minutes without opening that oven door. The Paris breast especially needs a little bit more time. This almond praline recipe is one of my own, but it's pretty simplistic. It's pretty standard. What is almond praline? It's basically a candied almond. And the trick to this is really making sure that it gets up to the correct temperature. And this can be a little bit tricky. I don't use my thermometer for this at all. I just use my eye. And it stays in this clear state for quite a while. You do need it to develop just a little bit of color, but very slight. Because as soon as you take it off, it does not stop cooking. It will continue to cook, which is what you want. So right here where it's just kind of turning over and all of that sugar is dissolved, I'm going to move it over add in my almonds quickly, and again, there is no specific measurement for the almonds, whatever you see fit, and then I'm going to pour it onto my nonstick mat. If you don't have a nonstick mat, by the way, I highly suggest you invest in one. They're just so great for so many different things, but if you don't have a nonstick mat, go ahead and use some parchment paper on a cookie sheet. Then you're just going to let that rest. Now, these have been baking for at least 30 minutes before I open the oven door, and my husband is quickly poking these so that we can let a little bit of the air escape. This is going to allow everything to cook through and through. Now, back to that almond praline, we're going to break it up into small, tiny pieces. Sometimes I also like to put this in a food processor just to get it really nice and small. I realize I am bouncing back and forth just a little bit, but I really want to show you the order in which I do things to save time. So here are the cream puffs when they come out of the oven. The toughest part is to determine how much longer you should bake them after you prick them. And I would say approximately 10 minutes or so. You want them browned, but not too brown. This is my super easy kind of tiramisu filling. I've done this before on my channel. If you notice that some of the measurements are a little bit different, it's because I really do play around with the recipe according to my tastes on that day. So that is just a really rough guide to what I use. You can go ahead and play around with that or use the exact same recipe and it's probably going to turn out just fine. The next thing that we add is a little bit of this here and it is so delicious. And I'm not a huge cream cheese fan, you guys know this, but this is completely different. It just adds a really nice lightness. Now, whenever you are filling up your cream puffs, I used to do it on the side or the top, but I've learned, do it on the bottom, that way nobody sees anything. And I'm also using a coupler to fill these because I'm going to fill up my Paris breast later using a different tip. All you have to do is insert it and make sure that you generously fill these. You want to make sure that they are filled up, but don't overfill. I did that with 1 or 2 here, and you'll know you're overfilled it because it kind of explodes on you, so do be careful with that. It might seem like a lot of filling, but you do want these to be nice and filled, and the filling is quite light. And yep, that happens if you overfill it. Now I'm moving on to my Paris breast here. I have already cut the choux pastry in half, and now I'm adding on a little bit of that almond praline that we broke up earlier. It adds such a beautiful crunch, and I'm being really kind of organic and messy with the way that I'm applying this whipped cream. I think it just looks so beautiful from the side once you have it all put together. Go ahead and layer that up twice, and then I put on the top, and now I'm adding on some yummy confectioner's sugar. Whenever I see Paris breast, it generally is like this, but you do whatever you see fit. I'm going to make it even a little bit fancier, and I'm going to add on a whipped cream rose. If you want to know how I make whipped cream roses and flowers in general in a more detailed way, you can go ahead and check out that tutorial in the right-hand corner. I know that my mom really enjoys these type of desserts over cakes and things like that for her birthday. So this is a great way to kind of dress up your Paris breast to make it a little bit more festive or a little bit more celebratory. My final tips here for today's video is how do we store these and when should you fill them? So honestly, if you really want these to be nice and crisp and fresh, you should leave the shells unfilled and then fill them on site or whenever you're going to eat them. But realistically, to save time, I do like to have all of them filled at once, and then I just put them in my freezer, and these fare a lot better in the freezer than in the fridge because I find that the freezer lets that pastry stay relatively crisp. I mean, of course, it's not going to be as crisp as it normally is when you take it right out of the oven and let it cool down. I store these for up to 2 weeks in my freezer, just in a regular Ziploc container, but honestly, they never seem to last that long. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading daily, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys.